There we go. All right. Here we go. All right.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So I was going to ask you, I was going to quiz you. I mean, we're going to avoid US politics still because that's just fucked up, right? There's no point in even going there. But
Yeah,
I was going to
for
like,
at least the next 4 years. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I'm not going to engage with any of it.
yeah, yeah. But we can gloat a little bit. We can gloat a little bit over Syria, right? We can gloat a little bit over Syria.
Yes. Yeah, I
And
suppose we can
and
do that.
and I was going to say like one thing I wanted to get your perspective on because I've been chatting with Victor about this as well. I've been trying to make the case that we're probably off a bit when we assess or guess how strong Ukraine really is militarily versus how strong Russia really is militarily. And the
Okay.
reason we're off a bit, one of the reasons we're off a bit, is because in terms of shaping the narrative, Russia has every incentive to present itself as strong as possible so that the rest should just give up fighting, right?
Yeah.
And just stop. Whereas Ukraine
Right.
has a very mixed incentive, where on the one hand, it would like to present itself as strong enough that Russia doesn't have a chance. But on the other hand, if they actually do that, they get less support from the US or Europe. So they have to actually
Makes it
always
hard.
kind of present themselves as like needing, the support that they get. And that means that
Yeah.
we're probably going to have a very skewed picture.
Mhm.
And so I think that things like, Armenia having to give up in the Nagorno-Karabakh region in 2020, was that in 2023 already, or was it already 2022? I think it was 2023. It was last year.
Yeah, I think it was last year.
And now, Syria falling. I think those are kind of larger macro indicators that Russia's kind of chomping at the bit more than it would like to admit, right? I mean, yeah.
That's not the expression you're looking for here. You're looking for sucking wind, where the horse is completely knackered and has basically run out of energy and is just barely able to make it around the end of the race course. That's much more the situation that Russia is in. I think that's been really clear for at least the last probably 4 to 6 months. And this business where they couldn't send enough additional troops or hardware into Syria to prop up the Assad regime, that's just one more indication that they are not anywhere close to the same type of power that they were 2 years ago or 3 years ago before they decided to invade Ukraine. Honestly, I don't know how much that helps the Ukrainians, though, because if you look at the way that Russia is fighting this war, the way they're engaging with the Ukrainians, they're still using an awful lot of these meat wave assaults, where really you're just taking penniless humans, desperate people, and dragging them in from wherever, including North Korea if necessary. And you're just basically forcing those guys to keep charging forward at Ukrainian positions until either they die or they make some sort of progress. That by itself wouldn't be enough to get the job done, but the Russians are also still lobbing something like 100 of these floating air bombs, these guided FAB weapons, into Ukrainian positions every day, and the Ukrainians don't have a weapon that can stop that. So
Yeah,
between
that's a big
the
problem.
yeah, so between the endless waves of expendable humans and the 100 or so guided bombs that are hitting, I mean, very, very, very large bombs, like 3,000 pounds of explosive in some of these things. Between those two factors, it's really difficult it's really difficult for the Ukrainians to maintain any sort of offensive momentum. And it also means that if they try to hold any particular patch of dirt for very long, eventually that patch of dirt will have been hit by so many of those bombs that they just can't hold it anymore, right? And then basically the Ukrainians have to fall back. So, so the good news is that Ukraine, a nation that currently contains about 37 million humans, is still holding its own against freaking Russia, which contains like 145 million humans and the entire arsenal of the Soviet Union. The fact that they're even still in this fight 2.5 years in is extraordinary. It's incredible. Almost 3 years now, right? I mean, we're coming up on February in a couple of months. So that's amazing. But the idea that somehow the Ukrainians would be able to hold off the Russians indefinitely without Western support, or the idea that the Ukrainians are holding a lot of extra strength back and they could march all the way to Moscow right now if they wanted to do that, I don't see that happening. Right? I don't think
No,
that that's true.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so I
Well,
don't know. I don't know where that
I,
leaves us. Yeah.
I kind of feel like they potentially could have marched something to Moscow when they attacked Kursk. It would have been really stupid because that whatever they marched would have gotten stuck somewhere or surrounded at some point. You know what I mean? It's like Wagner
And blown up.
marching
Yes.
towards Moscow. There would have been very little in their way after they crossed the border. at
Right,
first,
right.
but at some point that would have like it would have overextended their logistics. They did, at least I think the part that they got right is that Russia, in order to rescue that the image that they can that they have the clearly stronger army than the Ukrainians, even though that culvert in the Kursk area is relatively small, the fact that they can't get rid of it is a pretty significant problem for Russia. It makes them look bad, and it forces them to probably put more units into that area trying to get that back than they would for any other area of that size, anywhere else along the front. So the fact that Ukraine has dug in there, I mean, they're saying that in that area they're getting 6-1, 7-1 losses, which is more than they claim to be getting anywhere else, just because Russia is throwing tons of stuff at them.
Well, including North Koreans. I mean, most of the North Koreans, in
Yeah.
fact, all the North Koreans that I'm aware of that have gotten introduced into this fight, all of them are in Kursk, and all of them are being thrown at these Ukrainian positions in Kursk. I'm not sure what the word culvert is supposed to mean in this context. A culvert is a tunnel that you dig under a road. This is a
Um,
salient. This is a
salient.
salient. Yeah, so this
A
is a
salient. I
salient.
will edit it out later. I will say
Yeah.
salient a bunch of times, and then I will put in salient. Salient, salient, salient.
So this is salient that the Ukrainians have created in Kursk, and yes, the fact that they're still there is incredible. I mean, that's that's really extraordinary. But again, it doesn't necessarily mean that you wind up beating Russia. It doesn't mean that you've necessarily won in a great powers conflict against Russia, because all of Russian history is about basically grinding your enemies down for as long as that takes, even if it takes literally decades, to get a particular ethnic minority to stop fighting, or to get a particular neighbor to accept Russian dominance or whatever, right? So the idea that the idea that there's something inherently magical or wonderful, or that there's some sort of silver bullet characteristic or quality to this Ukrainian presence in Kursk, that's questionable. It still ultimately comes down to Western support. What I found fascinating about the interaction between the Israelis and the U.S. in the Middle East, the Iranians were put in a position where the Iranians were shown twice. They were shown twice that if they really act up, and if they really try to get involved, they're going to get it smoked. So
Yeah.
the
I mean, in a way,
I
it
was
showed.
concerned.
It
Hmm?
seemed to show that there was still a lot of headroom in Ukrainian air defense, to be
Oh
perfectly
yeah,
honest, because
yes.
Iran threw like 300 some odd missiles at the same time of exactly the same varieties that Russia launches at Ukraine every day, and not a single fucking one of them that was going anywhere important got through. I mean, it
Yeah.
literally intercepted every single thing that was about to hit anything.
Yeah, so
And it did that twice.
that was the most recent Iranian attack on Israel, and it was horrifying. It really was. I
Yeah.
mean, the ballistic missiles that Iran fired at Israel, these objects are the size of they're the length of a school bus, and they have something like at least 1,000 pounds of explosive in the warhead. So if they do hit their target, they have the potential to be absolutely devastating, and nothing like that has happened to a Western nation since World War II. Okay, so like
Yeah.
the consequences, the impact of that assault could have been absolutely horrific.
Yeah.
And the Western defenses, the NATO type defenses that Israel has access to, we learned that those types of defenses are capable of taking all of that stuff out of the sky and just obliterating it.
Yeah. It's
Then
amazing.
on top of that, the Israelis, like a week or two later, they flew right into the Iranian theater, the Iranian side of this conflict, and they were able to go right through the Iranian air defenses with no losses. I mean, the Iranian air defenses don't seem to have done anything at all. Like they were not able to accomplish anything. And then those Iranian air defenses, a lot of them got blown up apparently, and then a number of military targets inside Iran basically got incinerated by the Israelis, more or less at will. And you'll notice that the Iranians since then haven't done shit, not one fucking thing. It's been what, like 3 weeks, 4 weeks since the Israelis went in there and stomped on Iran good and hard. And since then, there's been a lot of bluster, and then there's been a lot of talk from Iran about how they will retaliate, and they're just biding their time, and they're working out what their most devastating retaliation strategy is going to be. It's been a lot of words, but in terms of them actually doing anything, they haven't done shit, because they can't. They've been shown very clearly that all of their most frightening weapons don't work. When you throw them at Israel, those ballistic missiles, they won't arrive, they won't get there. And then, to the extent that they do try to cause any trouble, the response from Israel can be absolutely devastating to Iran. And there's nothing the Iranians can do about it. Okay, so that's actually hugely reassuring to me. It means that NATO really does have a massive technological edge on, on Russia and what's left of the Soviet Union and all of the nations that are aligned with Russia and that are part of that axis of assholes that really extends from Syria through Iran and then up through Moscow and then over to North Korea and then probably into Beijing. Although the Chinese have really sort of tried to stay out of this, and they've tried to behave as reasonably as they can without completely losing face, without sacrificing all of their clout on the global stage. But yeah, I mean, it really looks to me like the NATO equipment is so much better and so much more powerful and so much more sophisticated than all of this Cold War crap that Russia depends on and that Russia has been selling to all of their bad actor allies. That we're actually in much better shape than I would have expected. Okay, so like the idea that we would be able to take hundreds of these incoming ballistic missiles that come in at something like, I don't know, Mach 5, Mach 6, Mach 7, some insane rate of speed. A lot of those missiles didn't even re-enter from orbits. A lot of those missiles apparently got blown up literally in outer space. But as they came within range of the Israeli Arrow anti-missile defense systems, the high altitude anti-missile defense systems, a lot of them didn't even re-enter the atmosphere. And then the ones that did re-enter the atmosphere, they got intercepted by other stuff. So that's good news. And then, to the extent that NATO wants to intrude into airspace that is secured by these S-300 or S-400 Soviet era, missile defense system, it looks like a NATO power can do that more or less at will. So, the NATO power can find all of the radar arrays that are used to direct those S-300 or S-400 rockets, and we can blow up those arrays before they can do anything. And then once those arrays are gone, there really are no, there aren't any really sophisticated Russian-style air defenses left. After that, a NATO air force can basically operate at will, in that airspace, and they can do whatever they want to. It would be nice if Ukraine had such an air force. It would be really nice if somebody would get off his ass and maybe give them some of that stuff so that they can do wonderful things. For various reasons, we have not given them any of that really good, really powerful equipment.
I mean, it sounds like they're also still learning how to use their F-16s effectively, right? I mean, it sounds, from what I can tell, they're mostly using them to take down cruise missiles. So they're using them to go missile hunting, right? They're not really risking them in actual like head-on encounters as much as they might. But I still think that it seems to me like Russia is not flying as close to Ukraine as they were before. I don't know why, but I'm getting that sense that
they just need to get within 50 miles because all they really do is launch these flying bombs day after day after day after day. They have a production capacity where their assembly lines can produce about 100 of these bombs in various sizes per day, and they just need to operate their aircraft as delivery trucks that need to get within 40 or 50 miles of a Ukrainian position. They can fly at treetop level, so effectively they're not on radar until they're within the last like a mile and a half of their approach. At that point, they pop up, they release the bomb, and then they've already turned around and dropped back down to treetop level before you even register on your radar system. They're there.
The one good thing about this is that these things are not that accurate, right? I don't think these are. They're at best GPS guided, and sometimes not even that, I think.
That's actually the only reason the Ukrainians are still in this fight. Most of that, that tonnage, most of that firepower is basically just plowing up fields. It's basically just blasting holes in parts of the terrain where there isn't anything. But enough of those bombs hit a target that eventually, if it goes on day after day after day after day on a particular target, like Vuhledar, for example, that city basically got pulverized. The town. I mean, it was a town, right? It was a large town. And these concrete structures that the Ukrainians had been using as fortifications for about 2 years, at some point the Ukrainians had to pull back because all of the concrete had been smashed. There just wasn't anything left. It took an incredibly long time. It took an unbelievable amount of artillery and a lot of these flying bombs. But eventually, if you just destroy all the shelter, if you destroy everything that can be used as a defensive position, then eventually the Ukrainians have to pull back. The West.
I'm kind of hoping that once Ukraine, I mean, I think they're still at single digits F-16s. Like, I think we're talking less than 10. Yeah,
six. They have six.
Like, I'm kind of, they're supposed to be on the order of 20 or 30.
Might be five.
Might be five. Yeah. There might be one that got lost. There was one that got lost. Right?
There's definitely one that got lost. Yeah.
Yeah. I would hope that by this time next year that around 20 or 30, and then they might actually, maybe take a little bit more risk, right? I mean, I think that they can take out. Theoretically, they have air-to-air systems that can take out a MiG from 70 kilometers, which is more than the 50 that the MiGs can do, right? But I think they're just not flying that level of engagement because they don't want to risk the planes that way.
No, right. And keep in mind, the F-16 is Cold War era crap compared with the really cutting edge aerial capability that NATO currently has, right? So an F-16 is easily detected on radar. So if there's something like a Buk anti-aircraft system, that system will definitely detect the F-16. If God forbid there's something like an S-300 or an S-400 anti-aircraft installation in the area, I think they'd be able to detect an F-16 at altitude from something like 140 miles away. So you've got a real problem there. You really need in order to do the sort of stuff that Israel did to Iran, you need something like an F-35, which has a much smaller radar signature and is it's just capable of evading and dealing with these Soviet era anti-aircraft systems in a much more comprehensive way. F-16s are not going to do it. So you could give Ukraine 160 F-16s, and it probably still wouldn't be enough for Ukraine to fully establish air dominance, air supremacy all along their front. It's not the right type of equipment.
I'm not sure
it's not advanced enough.
I mean, it would certainly you could certainly get far enough to cut into Russia's ability to fly close, though. I mean, I think that this is not a matter of establishing air dominance. It's a matter of keep pushing the Russian airplanes far enough back that these fab bombs are a little bit less of an issue. I think that seems like it should be possible if they have more of them and if they can actually fly them and take a little bit of risk with them. That would be my. I mean, they have to take some risk. They have to be able to figure out at some point, okay, that's some acceptable loss rate, and that's going to determine the kind of stuff we try to use them for.
Yeah, but in order for there to be an acceptable loss rate, there needs to be a guaranteed replacement rate. And right now, there's no guarantees of anything where Western assistance is concerned. And I mean, honestly, Germany has done a worse job than just about everybody else. I mean, if you look at the ratio between what they could give and what they've actually given, it's probably worse for Germany than it is for anyone else on the planet.
I think that's about to change. I think that's about to change.
You think so?
I mean,
based on what?
Oh, yeah. Because based on the fact that Scholz has effectively taken himself out of the picture, right? I mean, Scholz is out. He will be removed from office in February, and he's basically taking the SPD out with him because he's insisting on remaining as their next candidate again.
Okay, so I don't know. So there's going to be another set of elections. Is that
there's going to be elections in February? There's going to be elections in February, right? Okay. Scholz has basically been ousted in a vote of no confidence.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that had even happened. Okay.
But so there will be elections in February, and basically every single other major candidate has effectively said that they will deliver Taurus missiles to Ukraine the second they take office. The thing actually reminds me a little bit of the situation where Scholz asked Orban to go to the bathroom so that the EU could vote, to supply 50 billion euros to Ukraine. And now Scholz is like, and I am out of here. I've put way too much of my career into not giving Ukraine Taurus missiles, so I'm just going to walk out of the door.
I'll be over here so I can spend more time not giving missiles to Ukraine. I'll be doing that over here. You guys can do whatever you want.
It's basically like that. It's basically like that.
Right over here, absolutely refusing to give any missiles to Ukraine.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. And actually, at this point also,
what
And
about
at this
the
point, also
AFD?
those fuckers. But I mean, the AFD and BSW are still going to be a little bit of an annoyance on this. For
What is
you know,
the okay? What is this now? What is the BSW?
the Bundesrat Wagenknecht. This is this
Oh,
woman that emerged from the Linke.
I
We'll do a
know.
separate
Yes.
conversation
Okay.
about this.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I
I,
know. Yes. I know
we
who
can
this
talk
woman
about
is.
German
Yeah.
politics at some point. Let's not talk about it too much right now. But
Okay.
the difference is that with this coming up, we're now at a situation where the German defense minister, actually no, not the defense minister. That's someone else. Annalena Baerbock. Annalena
Yeah.
Baerbock. She has actually
She's green, right?
she was
She's a
green, and this was, I mean,
green
the
party.
Greens are now the ones for the people with uniforms, I think, because she's the one that has the first German major political. I think she's I think she's the foreign secretary or something like that right now, if I remember correctly. Again, I can annotate this later. Actually, no, but fuck it, I'll look it up right now. I don't want to, but I don't need to put a bunch of bullshit in here. Yeah. She's the Minister of Foreign Affairs. She's the equivalent of the Secretary of State, effectively, in the U.S. as far as I can tell. And she has also now not ruled out putting German troops in Ukraine. So this is the second major country after France that has effectively said that rather than the U.S. backing out, meaning the end for Ukraine, it's going to be German troops in Ukraine if necessary. I think the problem there is that this isn't something they would have ever said loudly. That's also something you don't want to say loudly enough to, jeopardize any potential additional aid you might get from the U.S. at the wrong time, right? So you don't want to tell the U.S., oh, we don't need you if there's a chance you're going to get aid. But if Trump really wants to go, completely crazy and stop supporting NATO and supporting Europe, I don't think Europe lacks the means to start pushing back as well at this point with what's left of Russia, right? And what's left of the Russian population, Russian GDP, and Russian military development.
Well, okay. We'll see how well any of these predictions hold up. I mean, 2 weeks ago, I would never ever have predicted that the president of South Korea would declare martial law. That kind of came out of nowhere.
Yes.
And 2 weeks ago, I certainly
and just to get himself ousted for no reason. I mean, I don't even know what was going on in that guy's head. I just don't understand. This is the clumsiest. He's just a crap politician, as far as I can tell.
He's a terrible politician. Yeah, no, he was an excellent public prosecutor, and he did a remarkable job of taking very powerful Korean politicians and really holding their feet to the fire. He was very good at that. But then when he decided to become a politician himself, when he decided to, assume the presidency, it turns out that you can't run a democracy the same way that you run a senior, prosecutor's office. You just can't. So his approval ratings are somewhere around 20%. I mean, that's where they were before the attempted coup. It's not clear, how much of the country still supports him at all. Even his own party, what is technically the ruling party of South Korea, simply because they have the presidency. Even those guys don't really seem to know what they can do for him. They don't seem to support him wholeheartely. And they don't control the parliament, so it's an opposition party that controls the parliament in any case. Yeah, so no, I mean that's just an extraordinary mess. What it boils down to is that that right now world events, not just U.S. events or European events, but world events, seem like they are far less predictable and far more dynamic than I would have assumed possible, right?
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Okay, it means that it means that some outcomes that you would never have considered that are bad outcomes, you certainly those bad outcomes become more likely in an environment like this. But it also means that good outcomes that like the fall of Bashar al-Assad in Syria, that was completely unexpected. I mean, at least I didn't expect it.
Yeah, I didn't expect that either. And it was so fast. I mean,
I don't think he expected it.
No.
So
great ophthalmologist didn't see that one coming. Yeah.
So even even a situation like that, it can arise when you have a period of really extraordinary instability like the one that we're currently in. I think that's about all we can say.
Absolutely, cool.
This coming
I will make one episode entirely about your mustache, I think, and then we'll see what it is.
All right. Well, yeah. So we'll see. You might get one more update on this, but yeah, I think it is going to be gone by the time I go to Germany.
Send me
I
some
think
pictures of your colleague. Yeah,
that's very clear. I'll talk to you
with
soon.
his
Yeah.
permission.
Later.
All right. See
Yeah.
you.
Fine.
Bye.
Later. Yeah. Bye.